Hello and welcome everyone into a fresh episode of KSR Zoom Action, our basketball film breakdown show. As always, Zack Geoghegan, joined by my co-host Brandon Ramsey. Brandon, how are you doing? Kentucky's on a 5-game winning streak. How are you feeling personally right now, both from Kentucky perspective and from the fact that you have 11 inches of snow surrounding your place of living?
Feeling great. Love 5 wins in a row. Don't love 11 inches of snow here in beautiful, sunny Richmond, Indiana. But we were able to get out and about a little bit today, which was nice. I got home from the Kentucky game on Saturday about 5 o'clock, and it was perfect. People didn't come here for Brandon Ramsey weather minute, but I left Lexington. I left Lexington like as the snow was starting. Quickly drove out of it and then like pulled into my garage as the snow was starting at home. Literally made like the 2.5 hour trip with almost no snow. So my timing was perfect on Saturday. But then I have not left the house until like 11 o'clock today. So it was nice to get out and about. But it's been fun breaking down these games after 5 straight wins and looking forward to what is a really, really big week for Kentucky coming up here against Vanderbilt and Arkansas.
Yeah, 2 ranked teams in Vanderbilt and Arkansas. So as Brandon said there, Kentucky on a 5-game win streak. They polished off Ole Miss, just not in beautiful fashion, but they got the win regardless on Saturday. And like Brandon, I have not left my house at all since that game on Saturday, since I got back. So it's actually not too bad in Lexington compared to other places. But like you said, we're not here for the weather report. I did want to shout out some of our viewers here, like just some of our longtime viewers already in here bright and early. Yeah. Holly said, Zoom Action on a cold, snowy day. Life is good. Captain Crash is in here as well. Let's see. We've got MG in Kentucky is asking, is this the book club meeting? Which actually is like, we should do like a, because, there's basketball books like on stats and like, how to interpret stats and things like that. Maybe we should do something like that in the summer where we do like an actual book club thing. But yeah, so let's go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsor here, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of all our fun here today. So as always, we are sponsored by My Old Kentucky Home Repair, proudly serving the Bluegrass region since 2008. My Old Kentucky Home Repair offers handyman services, home repairs, remodels, and more. Head to their website, myoldkyhomerepair.com to learn more, or give them a call at 859-940-3376. My Old Kentucky Home Repair is your partner for any home project. Brandon, we're going to focus this week on just the last 2 games. Mid-range theory, that's what I was talking about. Steven posted in the chat there. I think that's by Seth Part now, one of those guys. So yeah, something like that. That's another day, another time. What we're going to focus on today is Kentucky's last 2 wins against Texas. When was Texas? Wednesday. Texas was last Wednesday, and then Ole Miss on Saturday. So those were Kentucky's 2 last wins. They're not the best opponents in the SEC. I think Texas was that a quad 2 or a quad 1? I kind of forget.
That was
already.
Quad 2. They're not out of striking distance for quad 1. Got a little bit of work to do, but they're a dangerous team. I mean, number 3 Swain, the big dude. I mean, those guys are good players. Texas is a good team. They're an NCAA tournament team, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're right on the bubble right now, as far as I know, in terms of the bracketology. And then, Ole Miss was a quad 3 win. Travis Perry's return had to win that one. Kentucky found a way to do it, even though it was not pretty basketball at all. Malik Dia, kind of similar, like in the Dalen Swain type. He's a little bit bigger than Swain, but like those big, like versatile forwards that are kind of tweener guys. Kentucky does seem to have some struggles with them at times, but Brandon, you were tasked with finding a couple of clips from the Texas game. I was tasked with finding a couple of clips from the Ole Miss game. Nothing in particular that we're looking at, just kind of some of the, the things that stood out, something that allows us to talk about just the current status of this Kentucky team and how they've been able to stack up some wins and how they're playing good basketball despite the fact that half the roster just keeps going down with season-ending injuries every other game. So what we have here is we're going to start with the Texas game. Let's hope that I can pull this up easy. Boom. That's the Ole Miss game right there. I should actually change that real quick. Let's do that real quick, Brandon. But we're going to go to the Texas game. Brandon has his two clips pulled up here. So we're going to start. We are already in the second half of Kentucky versus Texas here. And if I can get the final score real quick, Kentucky won this one 85-80. Did not score a field goal for the final 6 minutes. But it did not matter because they hit enough free throws down the stretch and played good enough defense to win that game. But Brandon, let me just quickly look at our text here so I can figure out what exactly, or the synopsis of your play here. Yes.
Mhm.
Couple of zoom actions, change side of the floor is just really good offense here, leads to a good Kentucky bucket. So that's what we're going to throw up on this play here. And as always, Brandon, I'm just
Perfect.
going to run through, and I'm going to let you kind of dissect things as we'll start back here just a second. Uh, so we start off with the zoom action on the side there. Ortega rejects that one, whip the ball back around the corner. Malachi immediately goes to the other side. They set up their double stagger zoom action. Is that a good way to say that, Brandon?
Yep. Well described.
Well described. I'm learning. We're doing this. I'm learning a lot
Yeah, you're
by
getting the
listening to
buzzwords.
Brandon
I
talk.
love it.
Yeah, the buzzwords. And then, I got a good buzzword for you here. One of Mark Pope's favorites. Then you get a great Gortat screen
Hey, now we're
for
talking.
Malachi Moreno. I finally figured out what he means by the Gortat screen, and it is the illegal screen that's not actually an illegal screen that we talk about time and time again with Malachi and BG, who are both really good at that. But you get a Gortat screen that leads to an Ortega layup here. So this was something that just felt like we hadn't seen a lot early on in the season, and then we've started to see more and more of it as the SEC slate has gone along here. Just more zoom action, more offensive movement in general, more swinging the ball back and forth across the court. But Brandon, as I kind of talked over that entire play here, what did you see from this one? What made you pick this play, and what stood out from it for you?
Well, it's what we've been talking about. It's what we've been wanting throughout a lot of the season, and I think you Texas wasn't the first time we saw it. It started earlier in this winning streak where you're getting to more of this zoom action offense. You're letting Malachi Moreno be the hub of the offense. He had 6 assists in this game, and this isn't necessarily an assist here, but it's still his offense that he's kind of helping initiate from the perimeter, and just the way that you get so much more spacing here than you saw earlier in the season. I mean, that you have the whole paint opened up for guys to drive into, to roll into, to cut into, whatever it may be. The pacing of this possession is much better because everybody kind of knows exactly what you're supposed to be doing. There's not this dribbling around of like, am I supposed to wait for a ball screen? Are we running this kind of motion? What are we doing here? It's like, no, I know we're in zoom, and then we're going to change sides of the floor, and we're back into zoom on the other side. So that helps the pacing, and then obviously just the execution is there with Otega Owe able to turn the corner, get downhill, and then Malachi Moreno, as you mentioned, does a good job of rolling down in there and hitting his guy to help occupy that defender. That was one of the things that Kentucky did well, transitioning from the first half to the second half. If you remember, in that first half against Texas, we were really struggling to finish around the rim because number 8 was in there blocking shots, deterring some shots, just making it harder to score. We were settling for more kind of mid-range jump shots, intermediate range floaters, different things like that. And then as we started to get to some of these Gortat screens and letting guys get all the way to the rim, it really upped Kentucky's finishing percentage around the basket, and it was why they were able to find a way to win in this one. But there's nothing earth shattering about this play. It's something we saw a million times last year. It's something that we're starting to see more of this year, but it's just good execution of simple offensive concepts, and it's what has allowed Kentucky to get so much better after this game. So when Kentucky was on a 4-game winning streak, during that streak they ranked 12th offensively or 12th in offensive efficiency per Bart Torvik. Now that fell a little bit from after the Ole Miss game, but one of the things I'm excited for you and I to talk about as this show goes on, quite frankly, is how these two games are really quite a contrast from one another, but
Yeah.
Kentucky was able to win both of them and win them not necessarily convincingly, but win them in a way where they were leading most of the game. Like I think they led 29 or 30 minutes in both of these games. There were several ties, several lead changes, but instead of these, huge miraculous comebacks, you saw the home team actually kind of control the game against the team that they're supposed to beat, but they did it in two very, very different ways. And I'm sure we'll kind of touch on that as this goes on.
Yeah, like you're saying, especially against Ole Miss, like that was one of Ole Miss's worst offensive performances of the entire season. Like you have the stat of Kentucky, what was their 4-game win streak? They were like 120th,
129th
and
defensively during that stretch.
defensive rating or defensive efficiency. And then against Ole Miss, like it's not like Ole Miss is, one of the 15 best offenses in the country, but Kentucky still held them to like a season low first half points, shot 30 something from the field, like forced them into taking ugly mid-range jumpers time after time after time again. So yeah, it's a little bit of a contrast there from how these two games played out. But Brandon, there is something I do want to ask about this play here.
Yes.
Because it almost looks like and this is purely me just asking and not really knowing what's going on, getting your inside coaching brain here. Is part of this play maybe even a fake on purpose for Ortega to reject this original zoom action? Because you see Denzel and Colin already kind of getting themselves in order in the corner here. Ortega like
Mhm.
immediately darts away from this, goes back around to the other side on the baseline, and then Denzel and Colin Chandler immediately get into their double little stagger screen situation there. Was this like a purposefully delayed or rejected zoom action to get it to this other side of the floor, or is that just kind of how things played out and Otega read it well enough to figure it out?
It's certainly possible. I do think it's probably more like as you let it play there, and Tremont Mark kind of jumped out pretty aggressively there on the high side of Oway. I think that probably means this wasn't called. I think he was back cutting it because, as you see number 12 and burnt orange there kind of get on his top side, that's kind of making him not come off of that screen. So that's where Oway rejects. I think probably as much right now of what's going on this side. I mean, one, like Coach Pope might have been talking about, like, hey, I think we're going to end up rejecting a lot of these first screens. So go ahead and get yourself set up on the backside so we're ready to come off of the stagger or whatever it may be. But also, this is just allowing a lot of space now. Like if Oway does come off of that to his right hand and has room to turn the corner, obviously getting space down there to the corner just gives you a lot more space to plan at the top of the key as he gets downhill. So I think he's probably just reading what the defense gives him, but that doesn't mean, like I said, that there wasn't possibly a preconceived notion that would be
Mm-hmm.
coming.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it just seems like it just flows really seamlessly
Mhm.
into that second action over there. And maybe that's just part of them. That's just what they practice and preach all the time. So they just kind of know how to do that already. But I did just think it was interesting that it looked like Denzel and Colin were already kind of setting things up in the corner there. But maybe that's just them having the awareness of knowing what's going on in the play, knowing the spacing. And like you said, like if Ortega does end up getting, around this corner here, like he's going to have two pretty solid shooters on the
Mhm.
opposite side of him. If Ortega can get up to the top there and drive in, one of those shooters probably, or one of those defenders comes off, leaves one of the shooters open. If they don't come off, then Ortega has a free look at the rim there. So I assume there's many different variations of how they can generate points off that look. And then let's go ahead and just, I guess, anything else you want to add to that, or we can go ahead and jump right
No,
into your next play
let's
here.
roll into I think we got a defensive clip next.
Yes, a defensive clip into one of the more exciting plays of the entire. Oh, sorry, one of the entire game here. Sorry, I just got distracted by a second. Let's see here. 128-31. We're going to go and move right along here. Okay. Yeah, so good ball screen coverage here on defense from Kentucky leads to Colin Chandler being able to pick the pocket and then does like his double pump dunk on the other end that really got the Rep Arena crowd going. I think this ends up giving Kentucky their biggest lead of the game at 11 points here as well.
Yes.
But we'll go ahead and play it out. I don't even think the possession goes too long before Kentucky ends up breaking things up here. So they go into the middle. I don't even want to try and pronounce that guy's name for Texas. Matas is his first name. Leads out to an easy dunk there for Colin Chandler. Really helped set the tone for these last 6 minutes where I think Kentucky, actually, I think that was their last field goal of the entire game, funny enough. But either way here, let's go ahead and, Brandon, anything from this? Why do I see some chats down in the bottom right there? Do you
Yeah,
see that
I
on
don't
our
know why
screen?
that's showing up there, but
Is that
um,
from me or?
it must be.
Okay, I think
Uh,
Steven was doing that. I'm just gonna let Steven do his producing thing in the background. I'll leave that there. All right, Brandon, what'd you like about this defensive play here that's coming up from Kentucky?
this is perfectly executed from like how you would walk through it in a gym 5-on-0, where especially for Texas, Vocatitis, I believe,
More or
is
less.
number 8. He's really good on the roll. That like,
Mm,
they want to throw him the ball. He's very efficient, very effective on the roll. Number 3, Swain in the far corner. That's who Chandler is guarding. I know he went off at like 29 points in this game. He's a 26% three-point shooter. That is a guy that you can help off of. I know he
hmm
made 2 in this game, but they were literally their only 2 threes of the game. You can make aggressive plays off of him, especially on on this possession. In my opinion, you're much more worried about Vocatitis on the roll than you are Swain from 3. So you see Chandler make a good aggressive decision, and it's one of those things too. We talk about it on this show since its inception. Often wrong, but never in doubt. Like,
hmm
m- maybe Vocatitis somehow makes this spectacular play where he catches it and like on the move, kicks it out to Swain, and because Chandler came in there, Swain drills the three. You know what? Like, I'm gonna tip my hat and say, hey, good job. But at least that, some of the time you're gonna get in there, get this steal, and at least 2 points. And I think that what Kentucky is doing defensively during this stretch now, even after the Ole Miss game and the 5-game winning streak per Bart Torvik, they're 90th in defensive efficiency. Certainly not great,
Mhm.
but what I think is allowing them to sort of punch above their weight class, so to speak, is how they've been forcing turnovers. I think they rank fourth. I'm going to look real quick here. They're actually third in SEC play now in defensive turnover percentage. That gives you a chance to have better defensive outcomes than what the metrics kind of might reflect, because you're turning defense into offense, and that's something that Kentucky's done at a pretty high level, especially of late, is by forcing these turnovers, by getting these live ball steals, and then going to dunk it on the other end, like Colin Chandler does here, like Otega Owe does frequently.
Yeah.
That allows you to have some better defensive outcomes than what it may seem like when teams are shooting in on you a little bit, or maybe teams are scoring around the basket more than you would like. When you can force turnovers, 16.6% right now turnover rate for Kentucky defensively, and they're actually second in steal rate in SEC play, 12%, which those live ball turnovers, those are the ones I'm talking about, where you can then really go create offense out of that. If Kentucky can keep that up, it allows them to, even if they're not ever going to be a top 20, top 25 sort of defensive team in the metrics, which generally qualifies you as a championship level team or whatever, even if they settle in at 50, 60, 75, you can be really high turnover, then I think that allows you to sort of operate above your weight class a little bit.
A couple things that stand out here is, first of all, just how Colin Chandler just like shoots himself out of a cannon on this play here, and just immediately
Yeah,
like
that's
that's one of the
impressive.
more, yeah, very athletic play there, just from a very athletic player. So that was one thing I noticed. Another thing is, I feel like even if Chandler doesn't pick this, I feel like Malachi is still in a good spot here
Yeah,
to defend this play really, really well. Like, I believe Malachi had 5 blocks in this game. 4 of them were on number 8 here for Texas. Like, some like
Vocatitis.
right at the rim too. So,
Yep,
and I think at
five
this point
blocks.
maybe he already had 4 or 5. Maybe he had all 5 blocks at this point already. But I'm sure Montas in the back of his mind a little bit was like, okay, this guy's already blocked me a bunch of times here, and I've got to try to figure out a way to roll around him and get this pass through a meet. So like that's already probably, before he even gets this ball, that's something that he might be thinking. But I did think in general, like even if he gets this ball, Malachi's probably still in good position to at least defend that play pretty well. But I guess, Brandon, my question for you is, how would you grade Denzel and Malachi's defensive, how they defended this pick and roll here? How do you think they did? Like, if Colin didn't break up this play,
Right.
how would you have seen it playing out, and how do you think Kentucky defended it
Still as
from that
good as
area?
it's still as good as you can ask for. I mean, that this is number 0 Pope handling the ball here. He's a high level 3-point shooter, especially off the dribble. He shoots like over 40% from
Hmm.
three, not just overall, but off the dribble as well. So you always have to go over the top of him and make him play inside the arc, which Denzel Aberdeen does there. And then if you read the scouting reports on KSR Plus, you always hear me talk about it, especially against guys like number 8 Vocatitis. You want to give ground and stay lower than them on the roll. So as Moreno is kind of there, giving ground, and is stunting and faking a little bit, he's staying lower than Vocatitis, so that even when he does get the ball there, it's just one, big reach step over, then he can get his hands up, be 7 feet tall. And Vocatitis was 5 of 14 from 2 in this game. This is a guy that,
Yeah,
like we're talking about, he normally shoots. I mean, I'll look at it right here real quick. He is on the season, he's over 60% from 2-point range, and the dude shot like 30 something against Kentucky there. So that is a big shout out to Malachi Moreno for the way he played against, quite frankly, one of the best post players in the SEC. I mean, that dude
yeah,
averages like 15 and 8. He is a really good player. And Moreno did a pretty darn good job on him. So yeah, it's not just Colin Chandler making the sort of the outstanding play here by coming in, tagging on the roll, getting the steal, like you said, shooting out of a cannon and going to dunk it. But
yeah,
yeah, even if that would have been a knockdown shooter in the corner, like if that would have been number 5 Heidi for them, who's a knockdown shooter, where Colin Chandler couldn't have helped in there on the roll, it was still perfectly executed in my opinion between Aberdeen and Moreno.
Yeah, and Vocatitis, I think coming into that game, averaged like 8.7, 8.8 free throw attempts per game. So for Kentucky to hold him to, he went 5 for 6. So to hold him to only 6 free throw attempts for the game here was definitely noteworthy. And a big shout out to Malachi playing really great defense. Like, one of the main things we talked about with him is just like it feels like he's just not long enough to either block a bunch of shots or finish around the rim. Well, I feel like he was able to do um, both those things, or at least defend Vocatitis pretty well in this
He's
game.
starting to figure it out defensively.
He is
Offense,
slowly but surely.
oh boy,
Yeah, you
it's
can
an
you can say the
adventure.
finishing stat if you want, but yes, he's in the
I
mid
don't.
40s.
Yeah, maybe later.
Yeah, Malachi's in the mid 40s of his
Yeah,
shots
that's
at the
something you
rim.
talk
So
about after the kids go to bed. It gets a little
yeah,
ugly when you.
that's probably the only thing that's actually preventing him from being like a first round draft pick right now, just so everyone is aware. Like if he was shooting 60% around the rim, this kid would probably be going to the NBA, no doubt, next year. And
So
that's
maybe
still a
it's a good thing,
conversation.
right?
Yeah. That's still a
Maybe
conversation
yeah.
that we might end up having later on in
Keep
the
smoking some
season.
layups, Malachi.
Yeah. So we'll see. So anything else from this play or anything else from this Texas game in general that you want to talk about before we kind of shift over to Ole Miss?
Nothing really. I think it'll probably be more maybe on the back end when we kind of contrast the games a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was really good to see. And I had to laugh a little bit about like how happy everybody was to be tied 40-40 at the half.
Yeah.
Normally Kentucky fans, I don't think would have been so ecstatic to be tied with an unranked team at halftime at home. But just
Right.
based on our experience in the last few games, it was like you would have thought we just played the best half of basketball ever seen. So I was kind of chuckling at that, sitting in my seat there at Rupp on Wednesday. But
Hey.
seriously though, it was good to see them take that step because I mean Texas, they're not an outstanding team, but they are a very talented, dangerous team. Like I said, probably will end up being an NCAA tournament team, and it was really good to see them play as complete of a 40 minutes as we had seen in weeks, quite frankly, from Kentucky. So that was my big takeaway from that one was kind of proven that it wasn't just fool's gold that you somehow miraculously beat LSU. It wasn't fool's gold that you came
Mm-hmm.
back and beat Tennessee on the road. You were able to then kind of go wire to wire and beat a quality team in Texas.
Well, like you were talking about when we first started, like against LSU and Tennessee, Kentucky led for a collective 2 minutes of those games. So then, for Texas for them to lead 29 minutes, they led against Texas, and then I have it real quick against Ole Miss, they led for 29 minutes as well. So like that is, it does feel like a whole different team when it's tied at halftime. And even Kentucky was only beating Ole Miss 29-23 at halftime, and it felt like Kentucky was playing their worst basketball in a while. Even afterwards, Coach Pope was asked about that, and he was like, it's like, you said we played poorly in the first half, but we were up by 6. And like, he's like that. And I think even Steven had the stat going in. He was like, that was Kentucky's largest halftime lead against a high major team all season. So you're almost like jumping around, like throwing a party in the locker room because you're up 6 at halftime, even if it didn't feel like you play well. Like it's the first time in a long time they've been beating a team that's actually any decent at halftime. So it was kind of some coach speak from Pope there, but also at the same time, it's like, I guess, like, yeah, they were up 6. Like you felt good being up 6. Even though it felt like they should have been up, like 15 or something like that. So,
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress. So we'll go back in. We'll dive in here to the Ole Miss game. Let me see if I have the correct one already pulled up here. I think I need to go back a little bit. Yeah, so we're gonna go into this Ole Miss game where Kentucky won 72-63. This one was ugly. Especially on the offense. Like defense was it was better. I don't know how much of that was just Ole Miss taking bad shots.
So we just lost Zack, it looks like. I'm going to see if we can get him back in here. I'm going to text him real quick.
Yeah, I wonder what happened.
All right, well, Steven's here too.
There you go. Zach's back. We got Zack
okay,
back.
Zack is back.
Whoa, okay, that was weird. My internet just went out a quarter second. Okay, we're back here. I don't even know what the hell I was saying. Let's run the film here. Let me just go ahead and bring it up, and we'll go into our first play here. So, I think I was saying the game was ugly on both ends of the floor, and God, it really was ugly.
Yes.
Offensively, at least for both teams. But I think what I have here is one of those kind of good defensive plays from Kentucky to kind of showcase why things were working well. And I want to give a little shout out to Trent Noah in these with the clip I'm about to show here as well. So I think Aberdeen gets this shot to fall here, and what you're about to see is almost 30 seconds. I think it's like 25 seconds ish of really, really good defense here from Kentucky. Like you see there down there, 7 points, largest lead of the game right now. It felt like this was a moment here where it felt like Kentucky could push the game up to 14, 15 points going to halftime. They didn't, but the point is, I thought we had some great defense here all around, especially from Mo Diabate right there, being able to cut off Dia, trying to get cuts him off twice there, trying to get around the bend there. Then they had to reset with the shot clock running low. Colin Chandler again, stifling defense because Ole Miss wants to shoot mid-range jumpers. Good defense there. Great rebound here. Throw the elbow in the guy's face. Those refs were calling non-fouls or they were calling the opposite of what the actual call was all game long. So foul him if you want to. I don't think he actually fouled him there, but I was trying to make a joke about the officials.
Trent Noah got fouled though. Look at that. I mean,
if anything, yeah, he got fouled there. So this play ends up, like, I'll fast forward a little bit, ends up going to the backcourt. But the result here is Trent Noah gets himself for kind of a broken play 3-pointer with the shot clock running low. So big, and that was a 10-point lead. Like, this was the largest lead of the game. Might have been the largest lead of the entire game. Yes, it was for Kentucky. So this was a moment where I felt like, okay, Kentucky's in a spot where they can blow it up by 15. Obviously, it didn't happen. This was a very cool, like, defense set for Kentucky here. But the defense, I thought, was my favorite part. And then Trent Noah closing it off with the defensive rebound for a guy that's been cold essentially been coming in and playing all these games ice cold because he's been relegated to the bench at this point. And we're going to see more Trent Noah. Like, we just are. I don't know when it's going to be or how often it's going to be, but just with no Cam, with no JQ right now, no Jalen Lowe, like, you're just getting to a point where Trent Noah minutes are going to happen sometime down the road. So and I thought he had some good ones in this game. So, but just great, all around great defense here from Kentucky, able to stay on the screen there. And then, like I said, Mo cuts off both of these. Is that Dia? No, that's AJ Store. I think I said Dia. AJ Store. So almost even more impressive from Mo to be able to shut off both of those spots there from AJ. And then, like I said, they whip the ball back out here. Kentucky stays locked in. Don't give up any easy looks. Colin Chandler forces a very tough shot from their point guard, Camerdine, something like that. And then, Noah closes it out with a great defensive rebound. He's rewarded later on in this possession with a 3-pointer. So, Brandon, anything from this play that stands out to you as well? Like, just kind of good defense overall leading to good offense. Anything stick out for you there?
It's a lot of what you said, so I won't just sit here and repeat it, but I wrote about it in my post-game film breakdown on KentuckySportsRadio.com. There was a whole segment I dedicated to Mo Diabate being, I think I called him a defensive game wrecker in this game, because like, this dude is guard. I mean, we're talking about him guarding their 2-guard in AJ Store and their 5-man in Malik Dia, and he was excellent on both of those guys. There's not a ton of defenders across college basketball that can get out there, move their feet, and cut off a guard twice on the same play, and then in the same game block their 5-man on a drive to the basket. Mo Diabate, in the very last play of the game, when Colin Chandler got shoved over by AJ Store, Mo Diabate came in and blocked the shot from off the ball. Like, I mean, this guy was flying around defensively. And the only thing I would say with that is, I'm really proud of the way that he has not just settled into his role, but started now to excel in his role. I mean, we're just a week or two away, removed from him losing a starting spot. Then he played 13 minutes and 12 minutes in back-to-back games and scored a combined 4 points in those 2 games. I guarantee you he wasn't happy at that point. Like, there's just no way that he was. Who would be happy? Like, that's just human nature, man. Like, I don't expect him to be sunshines and rainbows when that happens. And now in 3 games since then, he has played. He stepped in and played like 27 minutes against Tennessee, was really good. Then has had big roles in these last 2 games. And I get it. We've spent time this year questioning guys' attitudes. We've questioned what's going on behind the scenes. We've questioned guys' work ethic on the court. So I think it's important that when we see things like this, we also now need to call it out positively. And I really believe that, it takes a man, it takes some toughness to accept some of the things that Mo Diabate has been through this season. And I think that we're starting to see him accept it and then excel in it. And then moving on to the other side with Trent Noah making the shot, you said it, he's going to play probably in every game the rest of the season. Now, is it normally going to be 10 minutes Probably not, and quite frankly, hopefully not, because not even as a slight to Trent Noah, but because the reason he played was because Owe had 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the game. Malachi Moreno was in foul trouble as well, so that kind of shifted everybody up a position.
Garrison even too.
A little bit. So will it normally be 10 minutes? No, but it's always going to have to be 4, 5, 6 minutes because he just simply has to eat some minutes there in that kind of 3-guard rotation with only 4 players right now. Not counting Noah in the backcourt. And it was good to see him not just make a shot, but as you said, he got a couple of really tough rebounds, one of them being here. He had 3 steals in the game. Like,
that shocked me.
A couple of them were kind of right spot at the right time, but quite frankly, that's something that Trent Noah does well. Like, he just does find himself in the right place at the right time. My mind went to make an really bad Alabama joke, but I was I'm going to just let that one sit. But that's why I started laughing as I said that. But
laughing at his own joke before I can even get it out.
Name. Brandon Miller.
Brandon Miller, yes.
But anyway, no, this was a great play, like you said. You get to see it have some success on both ends of the floor, and these are. It would have been nice, as you said, 10 points with like 3 minutes to go. If you get up 14, like that game's probably over at the half instead of went the other way and it was 6, and now you kind of still have to fight and claw a little bit. But we're slowly but surely getting there. I'm not going to ask them to be up 14 in the first half until we're up 6 in the first half, and at least we've crossed that threshold now, and we'll see how it goes this week.
Yeah, with Trent Noah, I'm like. It's funny you mentioned the right place, right time thing, because like when I think of Trent Noah, one of the plays I think of the most with him is the game last year I think it was at Tennessee, where it was the game where he had a bunch of points, but like just a loose ball, like a loose missed shot, just like happens to bounce right to him as he's cutting towards the Tennessee basket, and he just gets like an easy layup right there. Like, it was a massive play at the time. Like, I don't remember exactly the time, set, and score, but like I just remember that being a big moment in the game, and Kentucky really needed those points. And it just kind of fell to Trent Noah right there. So yes, there's something to that. Like, at some point, it's not luck, like there's a skill to being in the right place at the right time. But I wanted to talk about Mo just for a second, because it does feel like, other than like, that like last second shot clock 3 against, I think it was Tennessee that he took, like he really hasn't been baited into shooting those anymore. Like, he's really just like, okay, I think against Alabama was the last time he really like was just firing up threes, and maybe that had the whole homecoming thing with it. But he really has bought into the just like, I'm going to be a defensive guy. I'm going to roll around on the floor. I'm going to probably get called for a couple of bad fouls, but like I'm going to rebound the hell out of the ball. I'm going to play great defense. I'm going to finish around the rim, which I do feel like I haven't looked at his numbers this recently over the last few games at finishing at the rim. But if he's not finding ways to muster the ball into the hoop, he's at least getting fouled and things like that. It's like it's at 6 points and 3 rebounds in his 20 minutes against Ole Miss. Like, those aren't crazy stats or anything, but that's just what you need out of a guy like him, and also had the 2 blocks to go with it. So he's been playing really good basketball. It's just been really sound. It's not flashy. It's not going to look anything impressive in the box score, but he has definitely been playing better basketball as of late. Last couple games, 2-3 games, really trying to find his role again. And yeah, he's not pretending anymore that he's a 3-point shooter. I feel like he was trying to pretend that he was maybe a little bit early in the season, and maybe part of that was Pope trying to believe that he could be too, but it doesn't feel like we're at that point anymore, and that's probably for the best, because Mo Diabate does not need to be shooting threes. It takes him half an hour just to wind up the jump shot to get the ball to the apex of his jumper there. So good stuff from him. I just wanted to shout out Trent Noah and give Mo Diabate a little bit of love on that possession there. So we'll go ahead and go to the very end here. And Brandon, this one I chose. It's a longer clip, so it'll take a second for us to go through it here. But this is where I want to put on your coaching hat and really try and explain, why this worked. Like, I think I have an idea of why it worked the second time for Kentucky. So I'll set the stage here. So 62-60, Kentucky up with a minute and a half left in this game. So here's the play. They're going to set up the same. I don't even know if it's an actual play call or if this is like an action. I assume that Pope called something out, or it looks like he is actually calling something out here on the sideline there. But they run a play to try and get Colin Chandler to come off 2 of those screens from Kentucky's 2 big men. He gets the ball there, doesn't really have anything, so just kicks it back out, and then you get a pick and roll straight into a pick and roll with Denzel and Malachi. Nothing there again, so Denzel decides to go in. They're just going to work the ball around, just continuing to pass the ball. And Mo ends up, I think Malachi gets an offensive rebound. Someone gets fouled here. That was just kind of a broken play, but it was at least the ball was moving and it leads to free throws here. And Malachi goes 1 for 2. He misses the second one. And this is where we see Kentucky run the exact same play after Mo Diabate again. Boom, forcing the jump ball here, just small plays from him. So Kentucky gets the ball again, and I have to continue to scroll forward here, roll forward, and you're going to see Kentucky run the exact same play once this ball comes in, or I don't even play action, whatever. But there's a difference here in how it works out is I think that Mo Diabate sets his screen just a little bit harder here. And as you can see, number 23, I think it's Pinkins. Pinkins is his name. For Ole Miss there, comes around and gets knocked off that screen a little bit. And it allows Colin Chandler to now get in a situation where he's being defended by 2 bigs for Ole Miss, whereas on the last play, when he caught this ball in this exact same spot, he was being defended by an Ole Miss guard and a big. So it wasn't as like their defense was, Ole Miss's defense was a little bit more in sync, a little bit more able to communicate a little bit better with a guard and a big, as opposed to here where you've got 2 bigs trying to defend the pick and or like a ball screen into a pick and roll action here. And then Colin Chandler just steps into the biggest 3 of the game, knocks it down, and Kentucky wins off of this 3 here. So that was a long-winded way of saying that Kentucky ran the same action 2 straight plays on the same possession, and it resulted in 4 total points for Kentucky. And I think the main difference here is that Mo Diabate sets the screen just a little bit harder, just enough to knock off the Ole Miss player off balance, which sends them kind of into a scramble mode a bit, allows a bad not the ideal defender for Ole Miss to end up guarding Colin Chandler, who is able to take advantage of that. So, Brandon, I don't know if any of that made sense. Hopefully it did, because I felt like I was really just kind of talking along there. But I'm going to take it back to the very beginning here, and I'm going to have you kind of tell me what you see on this play, and then we'll go fast forward and we'll run the second one back again here. So, like I said, well, here, you just go ahead. Tell me.
Yeah, so I mean, you've seen Kentucky get to this action a little bit more recently. I mean, it's kind of like some old school floppy stuff, really, with this sort of running along the baseline there, and then it's probably essentially called that. Hey, if you can't come off and get a shot, then we're gonna hit and kind of get right into that punch ball screen at the top of the key, and then this great ball movement as we get in there. I mean, that's making the extra pass, penetrating and cutting and kicking at a higher level than we've seen quite a bit this season. And we talked about on the show several times early in the year that I would always say Kentucky has a standing problem. And here you see guys, I mean, a good hard roll by Moreno there. Diabate cuts a little bit there, cuts again here, is making himself available there, sort of around the SEC logo. Feels like he can never make the first one, but at least we are getting.
He doesn't want anyone to get the assist on that one.
Yeah, exactly. But Kentucky's offensive rebounding the ball pretty darn well here. I mean, their offensive rebounding percentage goes up pretty much on a game-to-game basis now. They're up to 34.2 on the season, like 33 something in SEC play. So getting pretty good on in that metric, and I think that's something that can really be part of this team continuing to win games going forward, because it's not going to be pretty and sexy the way that this team plays offense. Like, you don't have the horses. Like, it's not going to be. We're not going to get a Hoop Vision YouTube video about how we play offense like a video game. But as if you can keep winning games, that's ultimately all that matters. And getting to the foul line, like you see here a couple of times, getting offensive rebounds, like you see here, and then kind of just grinding it out, and then finally getting into position where your best shooter can make one big shot to win the game. Like, that's what it's going to be, especially now as we transition to Kentucky playing these better teams. Like, hey, can we beat Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt? Absolutely. Can we beat Arkansas at Arkansas? Absolutely. Are we going to go in there and like control the game and win by 16? I'll be shocked.
Well, that'd be awesome.
But it would be awesome, but I'll be shocked. but can you put yourself in a position late where it's a 1 or 2 possession game, then a couple offensive rebounds and a couple free throws, then all of a sudden you make it? I mean, it's kind of like the end of the Tennessee game. Now, I would prefer not to get down 17, but like a couple things just kind of bounced Kentucky's way, and then you look up and you're like, holy crap, we're going to win this game. And like, we only need that to happen a couple more times this season, and all of a sudden you end up being in a pretty darn good spot. Certainly a heck of a lot better spot than any of us would have ever envisioned a couple of weeks ago. So I think this clip really shows some of those small details of like, yeah, it's ugly as heck, some of what you see here, but it gets the job done. And I hope that we can continue to see this team get the job done as the schedule, I guess it's probably fair to say, unfortunately, gets even tougher.
Yeah. Well, I think, part of what this clip can tell part of the story is like, you definitely feel better about Kentucky's ability to finish games, or at least, find ways to not necessarily score a bunch of buckets, but like just find ways to score points at the end of games. Like how the last 4 or 5 games have gone, you definitely feel a little bit more comfortable about their ability to be able to close games, especially knowing that Missouri game, they had it up however many. And I think it was even North Carolina game too, where they were up by a few points late, and they were coughed up both of those games. Didn't see that happen against Texas or Ole Miss. I also think this play shows that we're starting to be able to trust Colin Chandler. Like, this is a pretty nifty pass there to sneak in a Mo Diabate. Starting to really be able to trust Colin Chandler, who has just been time and time again as being like a big last second game, like 5 minutes down the stretch, you can really trust him to make plays. But the one thing I want to point out, as before we get to the next play, is watch how Mo Diabate sets the screen here. This is the main difference, I think, from this play to the second iteration of this one about a minute later, is Mo doesn't really set the screen here. Like, it's kind of half-assed. Like, he doesn't really clip the Ole Miss defender at all. It allows him to stay on Colin Chandler. And then now Colin Chandler has dealt with a situation where he has a guard on him, and the potential pick and roll that he would have called with Mo's defender doesn't even try and bother it anymore. It's like, let's just push it over to Denzel. Let's try and get the mismatch with him and is Dia number 1 for them, or whoever
Dia's
that is.
Chest. I think
Chest,
that's
I think, is Chest maybe is number 1, something like that. But this is a mismatch here, and Denzel takes advantage of it. He's able to get himself under, keep the ball alive, get it to Chandler, who cuts in. Like we're saying, good ball movement all around, good recognition for everyone. So notice, or just keep that Diabate screen in mind here as we go into the second iteration, the one that actually works here. So they're going to run the exact same play. This is the exact same action they just ran. Exact same spots all around, except Mo Diabate sets this screen hard, and it makes, I can't remember the kid's name for Ole Miss, but 23 trips him up. Yeah. Now you're getting a situation where I think it is Pinkins or Pickens, something like that. But now you're in a situation where Pinkins, or number 23 for Ole Miss, is behind the play. He's all the way behind the play, so he has to pick up on Malachi. Whereas it was kind of reversed last time, and that means everyone kind of has to shift up a little bit. So now you've got Malik Dia guarding Colin Chandler, and basically another guy in no man's land, the other big for Ole Miss there, whoever's just kind of lurking in the paint doing nothing right now. And then Colin Chandler recognizes that. So instead of pushing the ball back up to Denzel like they did last time, he says, I've got plenty of space here. I don't care that I'm 2 feet behind the line. I know I can make this shot, rise right up, nothing but net. Biggest shot of the game, Kentucky wins. So I thought it was, I'm sure maybe Pope told him that, or told Mo that maybe in the huddles, like, hey, on that last one, we didn't get the screen hard enough. Set it harder so we can try and free Colin up and get him a good look here. And even if that didn't happen, like, somebody recognized it. Mo made the effort to make a better play there, and it results in the biggest shot of the game for Kentucky. So, Brandon, is there anything else that you see that's kind of different from the last play there, other than just Mo setting a bigger screen, or kind of what do you see from your coach's brain here, I guess, is a better question.
I think you got it. Yeah, I think it was Spencer Smith earlier in the year that had a whole video on Kentucky's screening, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And yeah, it makes a big difference, because you got them to switch here. Mo Diabate is probably twice as wide on this screen as you're supposed to be. But let's face it, like, they don't call that stuff. So do what you need to do. Like,
they weren't calling anything. They were calling the dumbest plays in the world in this game.
Yeah, especially with a minute to go. Like, they're not going to call that. So get the dude hit. And yeah, it just, it was enough to force the switch. And then, like you said, now you're in a position where their 5-man is out there having to guard Kentucky's best shooter in a ball screen situation, which he's obviously uncomfortable with. He doesn't really know how to handle it. They're just sort of steps behind, and then Chandler splashes it because that's what he does. I mean, dude's a 40% shooter, and he's like kind of all of a sudden now embracing this closer mentality, and he's freaking sticking his tongue out at people and
he
doing
does on
all
display.
kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm here for it. I mean, we need somebody to make some plays like that. And if he's going to have some fun doing it, then more power to him.
Yeah, so I was a big fan of that. Just something I noticed when I was rewatching the game again this morning. I was like, that looked like the exact same play there. I wonder how it happened. So I'm trying to tap into my Brandon Ramsey coaching ways there. So, all right, those are our clips. So we're at 45 minutes here. Let's try and just, I don't know, do you want to compare and contrast the Ole Miss Texas game? How do you want to take this angle here? Do you want to just kind of reflect on the last 5 games in general? What do you want to, the floor is yours, Brandon. Where do you want to take this last segment of conversation?
Yeah, I was just getting ready. Probably when we get off here, I'll articulate these thoughts on KS Board a little bit, but I'm really interested to see how now these next few games go. Namely, obviously this week at Vanderbilt and at Arkansas, but then you have Tennessee coming to Rupp Arena soon. You have a trip to Florida coming up in the next 5 games with a home game against Oklahoma sandwiched in between there. And to me, I think that you look back, and I retweeted a few tweets to pat myself on the back, like I like to do sometimes. I don't just make this stuff up, but early January, I said a couple times, this team doesn't stink. I'm always telling Stephen Peak how we're not terrible, I promise. And I said I think this team's going to settle into being a top 20, top 25 to top 35, 40-ish team. Well, at the time, everybody sort of, laughs at me a little bit. And it's like, all right, how can you say that? We just lost by 1 million to Alabama. We just gave up a game to Missouri. It's like, well, it's usually not as bad as it seems. Right now, it's also probably not as good as it seems. Like, let's be realistic.
Last 5 games have been bad.
Yeah, like winning at Tennessee is a really good win. Like that's a very legitimate quad 1 win. But you had to get as lucky as humanly possible to beat LSU on the road. And now that's also a quad 1 win, quite frankly. But like, let's face it, they're just not as good. And then you beat Texas and Ole Miss at home, but that's what you're supposed to do.
And Ole Miss is bad.
Right. Yeah.
By the net rankings and everything.
That is not an NCAA. I mean, like Texas, pretty good NCAA tournament team. Ole Miss, not very good. Not NCAA tournament team. So I do think that, it's almost like kind of set yourself up for a situation where like Kentucky could lose 4 of their next 5 games. It is very possible. And it doesn't mean that anything necessarily has changed. Like, Kentucky had a rough stretch. Now they had a good stretch. Now they might have another bad stretch. It doesn't mean they all of a sudden aren't executing or they're not as good. Like, you just kind of have to, that's what scheduling is like in Southeastern Conference play. And, so the games are about to get tougher. And I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic now after winning some of these games that you're going to have a chance to pull off a couple, impressive victories, top 25 victories, quad 1 victories, things like that. But if they don't come, I don't think that necessarily like the sky's all of a sudden falling and you're not going to make the tournament and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be opportunities still to at least kind of get the job done, to get that part of the equation taken care of, I believe. But I am, I was the sunshine pumper when things weren't going well. Now I'm probably like pump the brakes a little bit because I want to see how it goes this weekend against the better teams. But I'm certainly more optimistic than I would have been if we were having to make this trip a couple of weeks ago, because at least we've seen them put it together and win some basketball games.
Well, like you were saying, like just that's the ebbs and flow of the SEC schedule. Like you play of the 5-game winning streak, only one of those teams has been in the top 35 of Ken Palm.
Mhm.
Over the next 5 games, only one of those teams is outside of is like worse than top 25. Like you're playing 4 teams that are within the top 35 of Ken Palm, maybe even higher than that. Top 25 of Ken Palm, Vandy, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Florida, which is that Oklahoma game mixed in there in between. So like you said, easily could go 1-4 in the next however many games. And then you're kind of just back in the same situation you were a month ago. But Kentucky, these are the games that it felt like they weren't able to pull out early in the season. So it'll be very I don't think anyone's really expecting them to beat Vanderbilt or Arkansas on the road, if I'm being quite honest. Like Vanderbilt is kind of like a weird up and down team. And then you have the whole Calipari, storyline with the Arkansas game. So
we owe
you really
one.
don't.
We owe Arkansas one.
Yeah, and they do. So we'll see how that goes. But I think, like Brandon says, like the truth is always probably somewhere in the middle of where Kentucky is right now. But like Brandon also says, don't apologize for winning. This is a 5-game win streak. It's the first one since 2024 for Kentucky. First one in a long since 2024. So the very early beginning of the Mark Pope era there. But I've got really two real tough tests coming up. And I don't know the status of Jaden Quaintance. Like it just feels like it's just going to continue to go along at this point. I'm sure we'll find something out on the availability report tonight. But if I were a Kentucky fan, I would just be kind of assuming that he's not going to play. And if he is, then it's just kind of an added bonus at that point. So this is the team that you've got right now. It's just the Creek Fisherman saying, "What do you mean? I expect them to beat Vanderbilt." I mean, Kentucky fans might expect them to beat Vanderbilt, but the projections and the odds makers are not going to expect Kentucky to beat Vanderbilt. Probably the toughest stretch of the schedule of the entire season is actually about to come up over these next 5 games.
I think it's true, Zach. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Tyler had something on the website about this morning, but I think 9 of the remaining 11 games are quad 1 games right now.
I believe it. Just looking at the Ken Palm rankings, like Oklahoma and South Carolina.
I remember it was just a week or so ago that somebody, maybe Jeff Brzzello or one of those guys. I mean, Kentucky has the hardest schedule of any team in the country.
Yeah,
through the rest of the year. So like this is, things are looking better, but maybe thank goodness for that, because we're about to get into the meat of this thing, and it's gonna, you can play well in some of these games and lose, and it'll be interesting to see how we all handle that.
Well, if they can, even if Kentucky goes 2-3 over this next 5-game stint, that's not a bad thing, because you're going to get a quad 1 win in there, and as long as you can beat Oklahoma, you avoid the quad 2 loss. Or that might even be a quad. I think that's a quad 2. Or no, that's probably a quad 1, because South Carolina is probably the only quad 2 game left. So yeah, if they can go 2-3, or maybe even find a way to go 3-2, like if Kentucky goes 1-1 next week alone or this week against Vandy and Arkansas, like they might be ranked next week, just the way the things have been trending, or depending on how that loss looks. So. They're in good shape. Like I think you even said on the board today that Kentucky has kind of solidified their NCAA tournament status in terms of right now. Like all you have to do is just kind of they're 5-2.
If you win the few games that you're supposed to win, then with taking care of business this past week, I think it's fair to say that projecting. That they can't not win another game, but assuming they win a few more, I now feel very, very good. And quite frankly, like the one thing about playing a lot of these games down the stretch, I know that we're still not, over the moon thinking this team's outstanding, but like the resume could get really good really quick. Like
it could get really good by this time next week.
Yeah, something that we're like probably not really thinking about is how, again, like quad 1 losses, like they hurt us, they hurt Big Blue Nation, because we think we're supposed to win all the games because it's Kentucky, but like they don't actually hurt your resume really at all. So like we have one little blemish, and that's the Missouri loss. Most teams at this point in the season, even some of the best, have a blemish, and we only have one of them. So like if you rattle off a handful of quad 1 wins, like it's not, we're done talking about making the tournament. We're done talking about playing in Dayton. It's like this team can go get a 5 seed if they go out and win a bunch of quad 1 games. And again, I get it. Like that's not what we get out of bed for as Kentucky fans. That's not what we spent $22 million to get. It's not the expectation, but goodness, it's a heck of a lot more than what, after we lost to Missouri, the conversation really was about making the tournament. And like, right now the resume just isn't all that bad.
Well, I feel like coming into the SEC, kind of the consensus was like if Kentucky goes 9-9, they're going to comfortably make the tournament in the SEC.
Yeah,
they're 5-2 right now, so you got to win 4 of the last 11 games. Like, there's 2 kind of you hate to say gimmies because anything can happen, but you got Oklahoma and South Carolina. Like, those should be 2 right there. So then you just got to win 2 of the last 9 games against teams that are all going to be quad 1 opponents. So I do think it's pretty. Like, everything is on the table for Kentucky to really shoot up or build up their resume there. Like you're saying, like a 5 seed definitely feels like it's fully on the table, especially if they can win one of these or even both of these games this week. Because if you win both these, you win both these games. You win both these games this week. Like, Kentucky's going to be a top 20, probably higher team in the country, at least in the AP poll. Like, their resume is going to look great. They'll probably be like they're already a 7 seed right now by Lenardi. So tack on 2 more top 25 wins, that could go to a 6 or a 5 seed just like that. So everything is on the table for this team to really get themselves into the tournament pretty easily and pretty comfortably. Just have to take care of some business against the bad teams and then win some of the games that are going to be kind of toss-ups. So anything else you got on your chest you want to get off here?
I don't think so. I think I've said what I wanted and needed to say. I'm content. I am happy.
I do. Cats Chat Pod wanted to ask, what do you think of the fans booing Travis Perry? I know you were there as well. Any strong opinions on the Travis Perry being booed thing?
I was sitting in front of a couple older ladies that were definitely, let's say this, they were definitely from Kentucky. They had some twang to them. And they were not happy that Travis Perry was getting booed. I look at it a couple ways. One, we spent a heck of a lot of time booing our own team this year. So, it ain't that big of a deal that we booed somebody on another team.
That's what Jack was saying, too.
Yeah. Now, also, do we really boo individual players on other teams very often? No, we don't, admittedly, and but also other players don't normally play for Kentucky and then choose to go play for another team, not just on our schedule, but in the SEC. So, to me, it's just one of those things. Quite honestly, you're booing him for fun. The people that are booing him, I don't think anybody there has this vitriolic hate for Travis Perry. I mean, I'm just going to say it because it's what was coming in my mouth. I don't mean it this strongly, but he was irrelevant when he was here and he's irrelevant at Ole Miss. So quite frankly, I do not care about Travis Perry. He's irrelevant to me. He barely hit the rim when he played in 10 minutes at Rupp Arena there, and he did nothing of real substance when he played for Kentucky. So that's great that he scored.
I know. Now we lost Brandon. Look at this. It's something about StreamYard today, Steven. It's just not having it.
It's wild to lose both of you guys. Different points of the show.
It literally, for me, it just said, "Oh, internet's out," and I was like, "Well, it's definitely not." But oh well. I'm sure he can get if he can't get back in, we'll just start to wind things down here. But like Brandon was saying, I didn't have an issue. I mean, I don't think I had an issue with Travis Perry being booed because I knew it was going to happen, and there was definitely a lot of. There he is. Hey, welcome back, Brandon.
I mean, we're having some serious issues today.
Yeah, same thing happened. But I was just going on your point. I knew Travis Perry was going to get booed, so I wasn't too surprised with it. I haven't been to a game as a fan in a long time, so I can't say if I would have booed or not. I feel like the only people I really boo were the officials because I think most officials in college basketball just stink out loud, especially what we saw on Saturday. So. But I understand why people booed him, and that's sports. That's just sports, man. You just boo people, especially if they leave your team for another team that you play. That's just how it goes. So, I mean, I think Jack even made this point on on our pregame talk is Kentucky fans. There was a chunk of them that wanted to send Reed Shepherd out of the country for wearing an Arkansas shirt. So I understand why fans would want to boo Travis Perry because he's the all-time leading high school scorer in this state. came here for a year and then left because he wasn't playing. So, like, I don't blame him for leaving. I don't blame him for choosing Ole Miss. I don't know why Chris Beard wanted him at Ole Miss. But, that's a whole different conversation, whatever. Didn't have an issue with it. I think it clearly got in Travis's head because he airballed that first set play that Chris Beard clearly ran just for him. They put him in the starting lineup for the first time in a month just for him to airball the opening three. Felt like he could never really recover after that. So, but I have no ill will towards Travis. I bet you by the time he's a senior in college, that kid's a good basketball player wherever he is. It's just not in the cards right now, at least for that, or at least that particular game on Saturday. So, okay. I think I have talked about all I want to talk about. Brandon, unless there's anything else you want to add, we can go ahead and start winding things down here before we get cut off one more time. Kentucky versus Vanderbilt tomorrow in Nashville. Game is still on. I know Nashville is pretty ugly right now with the weather and all that, but everything is still, I think Vandy didn't even have classes today, but that game is still on. Vanderbilt has a potential lottery pick and Tyler Tanner running their offense. He's a really, really fun player. He'll be fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see how Kentucky decides to shut him down. They'll have several different options. Like, you kind of can trust Ortega, Denzel, or Colin Chandler to take turns guarding a really talented guard, and you feel like Kentucky's going to do okay. Just maybe Ortega don't pick up 2 fouls within 2 minutes of the game. And then, Arkansas on Saturday. I know Steven and Jack will be down there in Fayetteville. That's going to be a very interesting game from just all points of view. Especially if Kentucky can beat Vanderbilt and go into that game on a 6-game win streak, like feeling like a potential top 20 team. And if they can find a way to upset Cal and Arkansas there, that would be you talk about cinema. That would be, I already can't wait for Steven's road trip video on that one. So, but anyways, guys, ladies, everyone out there watching, thank you all for tuning in on this snow day, Monday, across the Bluegrass. We'll do this again next week. I think we're back on the Tuesday, Saturday schedule for basketball games. So we'll probably start trying to do these on Mondays pretty regularly for all this. But thank you all again. And we'll talk to you next time.